everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's getting towards the end, so hopefully your attention is still here. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about an approach known as group model building that can really be used as a great way for engaging participants in your community to help build dynamic hypotheses, both qualitative and move to either quantitative modeling if you'd like. If you went to any of Lindsay Zimmerman's presentation, Pentecostal Christmas this week, you'd be familiar with a similar approach they use. I'm just going to briefly give you a background on a little bit about how group model building can be used, as well as the principles of system dynamics upon which this engagement approach is built, and a little bit of a case study. But really what I want you to take away with is that group model building is a process for engaging stakeholders to really foster their learning and yours about complex problems, and to decide on a course of action through consensus, not just collaboration or deliberations. The idea is that everyone is learning together. And I'm motivating this through an example of, we used a project, this for child maltreatment in North Carolina. North Carolina is one of 9 states that leaves decision making to the county level still when it comes to child welfare, and so there's a lot of resource allocation decisions, including which evidence-based programs will be implemented. And so just briefly, the way that group model building works is you basically have brief scripts, or basically semi-structured kind of sessions that let you kind of walk through the session. And again, it can be used for theory building, which we definitely use that for, and I'll show you some examples, or discrete decisions. And briefly, the idea here, and I got cut off a little bit, but as this group is very much well aware of, that context matters. And so the idea is that, again, if we work with our stakeholders to really understand how they're thinking of context, then we can translate that. And so again, we're really trying to foster learning to improve their ability as a group to make decisions, and for us to support them in making those decisions, and building capacity over time for assessing complexity, with the idea that they're going to be building this skill set and you can step out. I think it's very important, as always within community-based research, to think about your own paradigms and biases. It can definitely come in when you're facilitating these sessions and when you're creating the associated models. And it's certainly an iterative process, and so I'll show you a little bit of how that worked. In this example, we worked with 8 stakeholders over about 8 months, who all of them worked in child and family serving organizations, either as social workers, at county welfare agencies. And then we worked over 4 sessions. And in the first 2 sessions, we really focused on making stakeholders' mental models explicit. So how you view the way the world works. And we all have these, and it's all shaped, of course, by the way that we've experienced the world, but we sometimes don't realize how much they're shaping our behavior and our understanding. So we tried to bring that out and to see how they thought about child maltreatment, and then synthesize everyone's individual models into a larger model that we then also translated into a quantitative model. So this is an example of how you can do some wonderful arts and crafts with this. And so this group actually decided to focus on child neglect specifically. And you can see here too, this may look like a familiar logic model. And so that's something where I know this group is familiar with, and here we went very large, but the idea is that you're really trying to show the interconnections, and you're thinking about it across the ecological levels, but then you're also characterizing the nature of these arrows that are connecting the factors to think about, well, if this factor goes up, does this one go up or does it go down? And through making those specifications, we start understanding maybe surprising behavior and dynamic behavior that if we don't take the time to model, the theory is, then we don't quite understand maybe some unintended consequences of our actions. So the idea is that we're trying to think through the entirety of what may happen. So here you can see, here's an example of a micro level interaction that the group thought about, and thinking about problematic child behavior and how that affects negative parent-child interactions. And so one way you could intervene in the system is on parenting practices. But then we can also think through about how there's more macro level or policy leverage points, where you can think about how parental employment can decrease time to supervise, increase a parent's child care needs, and increase this child care gap. So you can think about where in the system that you could intervene. And if you want to get on the more slightly quantitative side, you do not have to. But the idea is that you can start, again, modeling kind of what may be a surprising behavior. So here we're seeing this little dip in an ability to meet some of your existing children's physical needs because you have a newborn, so obviously your attention is off. And so the idea is that it's helping you, again, to think through maybe kind of what is happening at this moment, and is that something that's going to continue, or is it just kind of a natural function of the system? We're certainly trying to focus on fostering divergence and convergence. And this model is very flexible, and so I wanted to just emphasize that these are a couple different ways you can do it. You can do it in person, you can do it individually, even though it's called group model building, and then come back together to foster that convergence. Just got as well. So really when again, to conclude today, we're gonna think about this as fostering a shared understanding of a complex problem. So not, again, telling our community members what to think, of course, or even letting them to share individually, but helping them realize what everyone else in the room is thinking as well. So, thank you.